Okay, Liz, thank you very much for that talk. I think it would be nice, I mean, would you like to answer some questions? We have some questions from the audience. We have one roving mic here, we have another one here. So, does anybody have any questions for Liz?
Thank you. Just telling my colleague from Nigeria that for the first time I felt the real impact of climate change. It sounded so abstract to me, and when I teach it in class to my students, I thought it was something I just, read about in the papers. But listening to Elizabeth, she has made what sounds or looks so abstract. She has made it very concrete, and has really awakened me, and I hope it awakens the entire world. But my question is, I was just ruminating and asking myself, how do you adapt? You say you're trying to adapt. How do you adapt to this kind of picture or the scenario you have painted in the Arctic? What forms of adaptation measures, or mitigation strategies are you adopting in the Arctic that, perhaps that will console me a bit, I don't know, but I don't know. Thank you.
I can say that our freeze up, I guess, we usually travel back to the community. Like some people stay out at their camps for freeze up. It's been kind of hard to adapt, I guess, for traveling on the ice with Skidoo to come back to the community after you go to the camp with boat, just because this year there was so much snowfall. We had a little bit of freeze up, like wasn't that cold, but then there was so much snow that it makes overflow, I guess, onto so it's been really scary. We try to send messages through radios and stuff like, don't try and come now because the river is still open, and don't try to travel back to the community. So we're just communication, I guess. In the summertime too, we adapting by trying to use like air conditioning, because in 2007 was the hottest. We hit, I think it was 33 degrees Celsius. It was very hot up there, like it was the elders. There were some people having heat strokes that were not used to that. Just trying to stay indoors, drink more water. We always tell everybody, drink more water. Just keep hydrating yourself. And so we're just trying to communicate better, I guess, with everybody, letting them know that you have to drink more water and you have to stay indoors and stay out of the sun. Just word of mouth, I guess, try to communicate, because I come from a town that's about 3,500 people. I grew up in Aklavik too, which is about 600 people. But to travel there in the wintertime is only by ice road. And then we have people who profile the ice to make sure it is safe to travel on, for the vehicles to travel on it. But this year still, when I left home, it was like minus 19. And this time of the year, it should have been easily minus 25. So it's been very warm. So this year, the ice road's probably going to be late. We usually could travel to Aklavik by Christmas time with truck by ice road, but this year it'll probably be January, end of January maybe. And we usually have ice road till April. So it's just doing the best that we could to try and adapt. But we've been seeing this for years now, that it's warming up, the weather is changing, we're having blizzards, blizzards at odd times of the year, windstorms, people getting lost. Like this one guy went out hunting polar bear on the ice, and a big chunk of that ice broke off and he floated away. We had to get a chopper out to him to go and get him because that's the only way he could survive. But luckily he had a personal GPS device with him that he just clicked off and they saved him. So just communication, I guess, with everybody and just trying to be careful out there.
Thank you very much. Has anybody started properly documenting the kinds of changes that you and your community are facing and experiencing, and the impacts it's having on your way of life, on your livelihoods, on the environment around you? Now, I know we read in the newspapers very sort of shallow analyses of headline things like, you know, polar bear issues like that, but the real depth issues that the community is facing, is that being adequately captured and communicated in ways that can influence the outside world, whether it's government that's remote from you in Ottawa or it's more international, on an Arctic-wide basis? Because I'm sure that the kinds of things you're facing are being reflected around the Arctic Circle and not just in your particular area. Is there a role that some of us here can play to help you document and get these experiences and changes out, to have bigger influence?
I'm not sure if anybody is documenting it in Inuvik right now, but I'm not sure to say. I don't know if anybody's documenting this.
One quick point is that James Berner's organisation, the Alaska Native Alaska Tribal Health, are doing some documentation, and they have a wealth of information available, and they have. I'm not sure what I know they're using that for research and for informing policy there. They also have a weekly newsletter that comes out, and if people are interested, if you give me your emails at the end, I can feed them back to James, and you can be put on that email list.
Thank you. I'm Debbie Vreeland from Arcadis, and to your point, I can say that back in '96, I was managing an environmental impact statement for British Petroleum in Alaska's Beaufort Sea, and the EIS actually had Western science and traditional knowledge side by side for evaluating impacts. And that was years ago, and I was looking forward to meeting someone here from Alaska or from the Arctic to have a discussion about that very thing. So in that instance, we compared traditional knowledge with Western science evenly to evaluate potential impacts, and they were very different from one another. And it was a project to build an offshore production facility in the Beaufort Sea, and the warm water discharge was going to be pushing whales offshore further, for example. And this was an issue for the native population in their hunting practices because it made things more difficult for them. And that's just one simple example, but I don't know of anything more formal, but it was back then that we were actually beginning to look at that.
I do know that ArcticNet, with the International Polar Year, does have the ship Amundsen out in the Beaufort Sea. I know they're doing research on different stuff in the ocean, the ice, the animals, the fish, everything in the water. So I think ArcticNet with IPY is doing something.
What is your community able to do at this point to augment, I guess is the word, your Aboriginal traditional knowledge, because you made the comment that that was integrated, and I know I've done some work in the Yukon that has been looking at how Aboriginal traditional knowledge can be integrated into impact assessment. And given the level of change, the rapidity of change within your own community, how are your people being able to understand what your traditional knowledge is and your traditional land uses in the context of this change?
Lots of our traditional knowledge comes from our elders in the community. So we all still respect our elders. We try and listen to them, their stories that they tell us and how it used to be years ago. So again, I guess it's just communication with the elders and asking them, like, you know, what could we do? And trying to work with researchers and seeing how it is, I guess, but it's just communication with, it's got to be with researchers and elders and just trying to work together, I guess, to get answers. Because lots of people are scared to travel on the ice because we don't know. Last year was my first time ever that I was nervous to be on the ice road with my truck because you don't know where there might be a weak spot in the ice. It's just, I don't know, communication.
You or your communities in the area working with any of the Native American groups in Alaska, who I'm sure are experiencing similar, impacts? And I don't know how active they are, but there's certainly been a lot of exploration up there, and the EIAs have been done looking at impacts on Native communities as part of the exploration process. So I suspect they're much more aware of public involvement and the value of, community action. So are you working at all with them?
As far as I know to date, I haven't been in contact with Alaskans. I do have relatives over there. This one year, I could say that in '96, we traveled from Aklavik to Kaktovik, Alaska with skidoos. There was 15 of us with 9 skidoos, and we went like in the first week in April when there was just like minor little cracks in the ice. And now if you go that same time, there's big cracks in the ice. It might be too dangerous that time of year to go. So family members, I guess, yeah, we still do talk and ask them, is it safe to travel there this time or stuff like that. But it just, yeah, communication with family members over there.
The mic on? Okay, right. Liz, thank you very much. I think what we'll do is we'll move on now, and then maybe we'll leave some time at the end, see if we can have general questions. I think there was some ideas coming out there, and it seems like one thing IIA can do is help provide information and put people in touch with each other and networks, and I think we can definitely look to do that. And there was an Arctic theme also at Aalborg, I understand, so we can maybe look to make some connections there as well. So if you'd like to join with me in thanking Liz.